Hello friends, it's Diane. I'm finally back making a video. I'm finally back in my craft room. We moved in very early October and it took quite a while to get the house situated, and the craft room was one of the last rooms that I really worked on getting put together, and it's still not complete, but it's workable now. And so I got on Junk Journal Junkies and checked out the events that are upcoming, and I selected a couple of swaps that I wanted to be involved with, and I knew that would get me in my craft room because there's a deadline. So this one is, excuse me, this one is for All About Books, hosted by Lori Jagadish. I hope I said that right. And I love books, so I was very excited to get in on this, and I had time to get it made. The due date is coming up tomorrow. It had to be 5 by 7 or up to 6 by 9 for size, at least 2 signatures, and at least 10 book-related images. So my book meets all of those requirements. It is, let me see if I can measure it here, 5.5 by just over 8. And I used a book cover. I didn't decorate the cover too much because I liked the image that was on that. I just added this little book plate and put a little sticker in there that says story. But the person who gets it can slide a title in there if she would like. And I just put some lace trim there. I made a dangle with just some pretty charms and beads. And this has a script tag, so I thought that was appropriate for a book. It says laugh on the other side. And then I used these little doohickeys for closure. They're brads and they have a little loop, so I tied some twine through the loops for tying. So it has 3 signatures, and I'll just go through it. I found this on the internet. I thought it was very, very appropriate for this swap, how to open a new book. So I put that right on the front. I coffee dyed the papers. Some of them are marked with, what is that? Distress ink. This came from the internet. I have quotes from authors throughout the book. Books are a uniquely portable magic, Stephen King. And then this was cut out of a magazine. I'd love to have that bookshelf. There's some vintage book pages used as decorations. This is a page from Pride and Prejudice, and this is a tuck spot. Let me count the ways. There's a typewriter used as a tuck spot. This is vintage paper from a vintage composition book, and I didn't have to age it at all. It just is deliciously old on its own. This I cut with my Cricut. It says Imagine, and this tag was cut from a book page. I also, in each of the 3 signatures, I put a card that has a Jane Austen quote. So here's the card, and then on the back of the card it says what character and what book the quote came from. And this is from a book about books. So this one says books read, title, author, publisher, recommended by, date read, and thoughts about book. And then there's a quote at the bottom of the page. So this is also coffee dyed. Each signature has one of these pages also. This was printed from the internet. It's strange because sometimes I read a book and I think I am the people in the book. And this one was a pretty picture with a quote there. I did just a little stamping on some of the plain pages. You can see some doily marks on some of the coffee dyed pages. This one actually has a doily on it as a tuck spot. This one is a library book out of a library pocket out of a book, and actually had the card in it, so that can be used for journaling too. These are little images cut out of an old an old catalog for rubber stamps. These were stamps you could buy with these book images. Very detailed looking. This hand came out of the same catalog. Here's another quote. I do believe something very magical can happen when you read a good book. J.K. Rowling. This is a book from a book about Louisa May Alcott. And I made a pocket on that page. This is cut from a book of Pygmalion, which was a play by George Bernard Shaw that was turned into the movie My Fair Lady. And there's a quote from Robert Frost on vellum. Another vellum quote by Henry David Thoreau, and it's backed by the vintage composition paper. Magazine image. This is a vintage from a railroad company notebook that I bought. I love that paper. There's another one of the Jane Austen cards. You must allow me to tell you how ardently I admire and love you. Another one of those books about books. A quote, we lose ourselves in books, we find ourselves there too. And I backed it with a piece from a book and just a journaling spot there. Some more stamping. Tuck spot with a tag. I used blues as a color. This is a pretty plain looking front and I needed to have some color in there, so I decided on blue. There's a piece of handmade paper and I just tore it and glued it in there, and this is a torn piece of a dictionary, and this came out of a library book. There's journaling on the back. I have these library cards that actually say books read list, so that's a fun thing to do. Write down the books you read. There's Louisa May Alcott. Sometimes I've believed as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast. I love that Alice in Wonderland quote. I just finished reading Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass, and this quote is actually from Through the Looking Glass, and it's said by the White Queen, I believe. It's not said by Alice. A paint chip and a 7 Gypsies ticket. Books are the plane and the train and the road. They are the destination and the journey. They are home. Anna Quindlen. It's another book that I just decorated, and this one has the spine from the Divine Comedy on that ticket. Tuck spot. Here's another, it's a little illustration from the Pygmalion book. Another cutout from the book. These things were cut with my Big Shot. Another Jane Austen card. And this is, it looks like a check stub, but it was a 12 by 12 perforated sheet, and I just glued it on as a pocket. There's the other end of it, wraps around there. And another Books Read List card, a quote from Richard Bach, and a little piece of doily decoration. And a doily glued on. It's not a tuck spot, it's just glued behind this journaling spot. This is a library card that was cut with the Cricut, so it's a little bit larger than what they usually are, and a piece from an old Grimm's fairy tale book, and a library card that was printed from the internet, and that's wide, so it fits in this card, that pocket, perfectly. So there's that book. So that's going to be swapped out with someone. I don't know who my partner is yet. But in making this book, I decided I was going to make one for myself too, even though I'm going to receive one in the swap. And I'll tell you why. It's because I had this old book. It's very old. I remember going to my great aunt Lida's estate sale after she died, and I was a young girl, and this is what I wanted, and my dad bought it for me. Grimm's Fairy Tales. It was old. It looks like it's from the 20s or 30s. The pages are quite brittle, and the book just completely fell apart. I've had it all these years. I don't know how old I was when we went to that sale, but I've had it, and it just fell apart. So I saved it because I needed to keep this cover. So I Mod Podged it just to kind of protect it, because it's so frayed. It's just pretty much chipboard in there now. The fabric had frayed away. So I Mod Podged it to give it a little more protection. I did not want to put any end papers down because I just loved the illustrations. I used Tyvek and cardboard to make the spine. And I took the spine from the book, Mod Podged it to a piece of nice cardstock, and I'm going to put an eyelet in it and a cord and use it for a bookmark. So I'm not going to go through this whole book because it's very similar to the one I just showed you. But I just wanted to show you the cover. I should have made the spine a little bit bigger, I think, because it's pretty fat. But hopefully I'm going to bind that this weekend and make a charm dangle for it. And what I want to use it for is to write down all the books that I read, any, what do you call it? Like do a little book report, I guess, and keep track of quotes that I like out of these books that I read. And that's what I want to do with it. Just keep it handy while I'm reading and write things down. And so I'm looking forward to actually using it. My daughter-in-law wants one too, so she's going to give me a cover for an Alice in Wonderland book she has that fell apart. I think it's a golden book, children's book. And that's what I'm going to make hers out of, so maybe I'll get to show that to you also. So anyway, it's really great to be back in my craft room and having fun doing crafts, and it's good to be back again. I'll see you soon. Bye.